Well, coming up, they tipped police cars and looted businesses in the wake of Ferguson shootings. And we just learned that George Soros, a liberal billionaire, was giving the protesters millions of dollars. So what else do we know about him? Stick around. You're not going to want to miss that.
Thanks, Brian. They tipped over police cars, set buildings on fire, and looted tons of businesses in the wake of the Ferguson shooting. And just revealed the liberal billionaire who was giving them millions of dollars to protest, turns out George Soros funneled at least $33 million to organizations demonstrating the death of Michael Brown. So who is George Soros? Washington Times investigative reporter Kelly Rydell traced the money trail, and she joins us live right now from Washington. Good morning to you, Kelly.
Good morning.
We've heard of George Soros. We know he made tons of money years ago betting against the British pound, but we had no idea that he was behind the Ferguson protest. Why did he put his money behind that?
Well, he's been funding these social justice groups since the 1990s when he first put his foundation together. It's part of his philosophical view that there's social injustice in the world and that America and its political perspective basically stands in the way of what could be global harmony and global the global community and true globalization.
Sure.
So he's been funding, these groups that are basically fueling this movement, and what his ultimate goal is, and he's stated this in his multiple books, is to drive more people to the polls and to vote. He said publicly that he thinks there should be one party in America, and that should be the Democratic Party. So by fueling these types of protests and the civic unrest, he's hoping to engage a population that historically doesn't go to the polls and vote, to go to the polls and vote, but not only just to vote, but to vote Democratic.
Sure. Okay, if he's talking about social justice, but what about real justice? I mean, a grand jury looked at it and they decided there was no reason to indict that cop. I mean, his message is colliding with law.
His message is colliding with law, but it's really tapping into a fringe group or some of the way that these radical lefts and the way that they view society and the way that they want to change society and make it more equitable and more social. So that's really what the spirit that he wants to tap into and kind of drive to become a movement. I mean, most of his groups that I talked to in interviews said, we want to take this moment and turn it into the next civil rights movement.
Sure.
So that's his goal.
We've got a full screen we're going to put up that includes some of the funded groups by Mr. Soros, including MoveOn.org, ProPublica, Center for Public Integrity, Media Matters, things like that. And that's one of the things that helps him push this message of his, is he's got a whole bunch of media outlets in his pocket.
Well, I mean, not only the media outlets, this is a very sophisticated web that he has spun, and he's put a lot of resources, time, and effort. And so you've got the people that he sent there to protest, you've got the media outlets that are covering it, you've got social groups that are just monitoring the social media part of it, you've got civil rights protesters and engagers, you've got fundraisers. He's hired a bunch of fundraisers to help these local groups on the ground get money and then build a social network, get online forum, and then engage them in participation and action. So it goes from, the money, he's sourcing the money, he's getting the fundraisers, he's got the media, he's got the civic community organizers, if you will. So it's a very sophisticated web.
Yeah, so grassroots, not exactly. And you mentioned community organization. Turns out Barack Obama worked for a Soros group back in the day. Kelly Rydell, an investigative reporter there at the Washington Times. Kelly, thank you very much for telling us more about George Soros.
Well, thank you.